call the Finance Committee to order. We have a quorum. It's the 7:08 on September 25. And we have some new members here tonight. So before we commence, let's all introduce ourselves. We'll start with someone who's been with us for a long time, our Finance Director.
My name is Jean Lovett. I'm the Finance Director, Town Accountant for the Town of Douglas.
Dual roles.
Yes.
And then we have...
So I'm Dick Vandenberg. I'm just starting on the Finance Committee. I was on Planning Board for a while, years ago, and I've been in town for about 40 years, so not quite a native like some of you guys.
I'm Pam Holmes, and I'm Chairman of the Finance Committee. I've been on the Finance Committee since 1993. I'll just say it that way. And I've been on the Board of Selectmen, and I'm also currently on the Zoning Board.
Okay, I'm Howard D'Amico, and I've been on finance. I think this will run into my fourth rotation.
I'm Lynn Mazzulli. I am new to all of this. I have no government experience in town, but I've lived here for 21 years or so.
Heather Moore, new member. I've lived in town for 11 years.
Welcome.
Okay.
Welcome all. Well, I think, just to let you know that I think we're going to be doing something a little different this year and adding in a review of the Finance Committee's role and actually a new Finance Committee handbook that the Association of Town Finance Committees puts out, really because we have a lot of new members. In fact, we have a member that couldn't be here tonight. She's also new, so we're going to anticipate looking through that. So we have a proposed schedule. I'm going to I let people look at it, take a cursory look at it tonight, but you're welcome to take it home, and then if you have some questions or concerns or would like to make an addition, or if you have problems with dates, we meet on Tuesdays. It was requested from administration that supports us. Both the finance director and our administrator will usually be here. They work on Tuesdays until 6. And it's much easier to have them stay for the Finance Committee meeting after that. It makes for a long day for them, but on alternate Tuesdays, they have the Board of Selectmen's meetings, both of them. So the alternate to the Board of Selectmen is when the Finance Committee is meeting. And it seems to work out for people. There are some people that have a Tuesday problem. We'll see how that works out for them. Generally, we like to have people show up. I think the rule is 3 missed meetings without calling or whatever. Calls into question whether or not you're committed to the committee. And the Finance Committee is one committee that we need a commitment, so because we have some duties to do for the town. The other thing I'll tell you is that the Finance Committee tends to be apolitical, which is happily great thing, since I tend to, really register as an independent. And it keeps us out of trouble. We're working for the town at large, giving them hopefully recommendations on the finances for the community. So just a quick overview. So we'll take this home, and then next week we'll finalize this, or next in 2 weeks. And then I'll post it with the town clerk so she can post all of our meetings at once. It's easier than having to go back and forth and continue doing that. Everything makes sense to you? Sort of like mud?
So far, so good.
Okay. Evidently the Capital Committee, which is a committee that looks at, Jean, why don't you explain what the
Yeah, the
Capital
Capital
Committee
Committee
does?
reviews all capital requests from the departments that exceed $10,000 and will generally last more than 5 years.
Yeah.
They typically meet at 1 o'clock. Well, that's the schedule it was last year during the day, because a lot of the department heads serve, as well as a member of the Board of Selectmen, I believe, and Finance Committee.
Yeah.
What happened?
And there's someone at large as well.
There
I
is some,
think.
I'm not sure if the board has one.
Ah,
I'm not sure if they do,
Yeah.
because I think, I'm trying to remember who was on last year. But they do meet during the day, and they take into account all the capital requests, and then they do a ranking of them.
right, to present to town meeting and
Correct.
fund, and look
Correct.
for funding sources.
Well, the funding sources they don't look for.
Okay.
You know, that's
Right.
usually provided to them. We were lucky enough, because of the override and the capital article last year, we were able to fund
Number.
a number of capital items, so we were very fortunate to do that. But it is an important committee.
So,
How often do they meet?
You'll find the the requests typically go out between October and December, depending on when they get selected. And then they have maybe a series of meetings, the January to March timeframe, in preparation of town meeting, because the articles have to be out, you know, in the March, April
do they
time.
meet once a month or twice a month?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends
Yeah,
on
on
how many
how-
requests there are,
Yep.
you know, because they schedule the meetings with the departments present that are putting the request in. So it really varies depending on how many requests
But it's during the day.
it is during the
Yeah,
day.
okay.
That's the key.
That's the trick. So I keep that in mind. If anyone has any urge or any time or whatever, we'd appreciate it. And then now we go to the special town meeting articles. You'll see that in a little pamphlet,
So Pam, let me ask you.
Sure.
Before we get into the special town meeting articles.
which I haven't looked at, but go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I wonder, I know when I first started, that one of the concerns I had early was really not understanding the macro view of the world, what we were doing. I came to my first meeting and we
Yep.
got into the first meeting's agenda, and nobody really walked me through kind of what a year looks like for the Finance Committee. And with 3 new members sitting tonight out of just the 5 present,
Right.
plus Jean, of
Yeah.
course, spending her time with us, I would find it might be useful to walk through that 5-minute
What this is.
concept
Yeah.
of macro. No, what we do from today
Yeah.
to, if you will, next April or May or June. How a calendar for us ones, you know, you mentioned right away that this year you wanted to really renew or review the Finance
Right.
Committee's role in town.
Yeah.
We could maybe start tonight by reviewing what its current role is in town.
Okay, we can talk about that.
I don't know if that's helpful to you
Get
guys.
up there. I mean, I've got,
Whatever you think.
Okay.
But it's just my,
yeah.
you asked me for ideas
Okay,
via
so we're,
email, so
yes, then
I just
that's
come
one
up
of
with
them.
it.
I'm glad you didn't wait too long or late, Howard,
That's
but
me.
thank you.
That's
Well,
me.
better late than never.
Asking questions.
Okay, so where we are right now in the season is we're supplementing our annual budget, which was voted in May, correct?
Yeah, so I guess you have to look at it from which part of the year you want to start with. Do you want to start with calendar or fiscal? If you're going to start with fiscal year, town meeting has already voted the budget for FY19. We're beginning our 4th month of the fiscal year. At this time, we look at, well, first of all, the state doesn't give us our cherry sheet numbers, our state aid, until July, so that's.
Cherry sheet.
Yeah, it used to be pink. Our state aid numbers till July. So at this time of year, we look at, okay, we had to prepare a budget in March. We voted on it in May to take effect in July.
Is July 1 the beginning?
July 1 is the beginning of the fiscal year.
Gotcha.
What has changed? And we're submitting the budgets pretty early to start the fiscal year. So at this time, we'd look at a review. I've already sent out an email to our departments and saying, based on the information you have, based on, you know, what you see the first 3 months have brought in, are your salaries okay? Do you have anything that came up unforeseen where you think you're going to have a budget? We basically have 3 bites at the apple. We have the annual town meeting, we have the fall town meeting, and we have the spring town meeting. Those are the times on the town side where we can adjust the budgets. So we sent out the message to the department. They're telling me where they may or may not have problems. Are they okay? No, I don't think I need anything. And we stop preparing. What you see here is the fall town meeting. The fall town meeting is typically held after I close the books and the audit's done. I submit a balance sheet to Department of Revenue. They give me a piece of paper that tells me what free cash is, and I equate that back to a tax return. So I've submitted something to Department of Revenue. They tell me, you know, where I stand, you know, based on the revenue estimates that we projected and the turnbacks. So that's typically done in the October, right now. DOR is coming in tomorrow, so I'm going to be giving him my paperwork tomorrow. I will get that free cash back probably before your next meeting, saying this is what we have as certified free cash. That becomes a revenue that we can use for the town meeting. So it's important that I have that back and certified before town meeting. We hold town meeting. That will be our last town meeting before we set the tax rate. Now, that's the next big thing that I work on, is the
Right.
tax recap.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So once town meeting's held, we set the tax rate, tax bills go out at the end of December, and then we're starting to prepare for the next town meeting, which will be the spring special, which will take care of any FY19 items. That's our second bite of the apple for FY19. So again, I'll send a request out to the departments.
Third, right.
Well, after the annual, yeah.
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 When is the annual? Did you
May.
say that? I
It's
missed it.
it's
Oh,
held at
okay.
the same night as the special, so they're
Okay.
typically, so yes, I have the annual budget, but the second adjustment.
Right.
Typically, we always have a snow and ice budget there, and we'll adjust again, send out the memo, are there any departments that are in need of funding? The only other way we can help the departments is through you. If we have anything extraordinary unforeseen, a department can request a Finance Committee Reserve Fund transfer request saying, this happened, I didn't know about it, and we have a reserve fund transfer amount of $50,000 that's voted, and you can vote to give that to them. It has to be held at a meeting, it has to be voted on by the FinCom. The department usually comes and prepares that. So that's how the department kind of gets their money. Getting back to the schedule, so we have the annual town meeting, which is done, this year was May 7th, 2018. The budget takes effect July 1st. We have the fall town meeting. That's our second time we can adjust the FY19 budget. Then we set the tax rate. Tax bills go out. We start the budget season. We meet as a Finance Committee meeting from probably January until April. We have the May special and the May annual at the same night. The special takes care of the rest of FY19. The annual takes care of the beginning of 2020. And then we will have a couple meetings, maybe at least 2 meetings after the annual for any request for reserve fund, because now I don't have a chance to go back to town meeting. So if departments are short at the end of the fiscal year, they'd be looking for reserve fund transfers at that time.
So is the key thing for the upcoming meeting, you know what you get from the state? Is
We
that-
know what you have from the state
You
now.
don't know that in
We
May,
don't know it
obviously.
in May. And actually, we need to know it before May. We need to know it in April so that we can
Budget.
have a balanced budget to go to town
Yeah.
meetings. So we use our estimates and then we look at, what, yeah, states, we say the same thing. If they could only give us the numbers in January, we'd be
So,
okay.
do you have all the info you need at this point before the November meeting, or are you still waiting on some?
Well, I'm still working on some
Okay.
numbers. So I will have all the, by October 9th, I'll know the funding sources for these.
Gotcha.
I take that back. I will know the potential funding sources. We have, as part of the assessors function, is they submit to the state as well to get the new growth. That's a budget revenue, and we'll have the certified new growth number. So that's an important number to have for town meetings. So I don't know when I'll have that back. It has been, or it should be submitted to the state this week.
Jean, is it safe to say, though, that a lot of the things you're talking about, your work in the next couple of weeks, are to solidify the math for fiscal 19, which was the work of the Finance Committee last spring and the May 2018 town meeting? Most of your balancing now is for the fiscal year we're already in, July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019. And most of the Finance Committee work that we do in the next 6 months is for the May the April votes, the May town meeting, to establish the budget
20.
for fiscal '20, starting next July 1.
You're working on both now. I'm closing FY '18 to get you numbers to help fund '19, because there are two town meetings, this fall town meeting and the spring town meeting, that will affect the FY '19 budget. Most of your work after this town meeting will be in preparation of FY '20.
So just for clarity,
Yeah.
there are really 3 years
Yeah.
in the conversation you just talked
Yeah.
about, okay? Heading backwards to balance and finish '18
Yeah.
that just ended June 30.
Yeah.
The budget we're already in,
Yes.
based on work last spring and the town votes, and then the one we spent a lot of time in January, February, March, April on for next May's town meeting and July 1's budget, next July 1.
Yeah.
Past, present, future.
Got that?
Yeah. And your role is not to test the finance director, town accountant at these meetings. If you need any information, I do request, I know this is surprising to you, the request to come in
Test
a
her.
couple. Yeah.
Test, she's smart, she
Yeah.
can handle
I will not state a number off the top of my head.
No, you
I
shouldn't
think-
be.
it. No, she doesn't.
I don't, because I'm working with numbers all day long,
Yeah.
and it's,
I work for the
It's
federal
jumbled.
government as a CFO. There's
Yeah.
no way, unless I have my little presentation,
Right.
I ain't saying a number.
and I appreciate that, because
Okay. So
numbers
you've got an-
stick and they
you
don't
have
get the, even if I corrected another meeting, they don't get the memo.
You have an ally.
Yes, I appreciate that, thank you.
Jean, I think the TOR, Division of Local Services, produces a municipal finance calendar. I haven't seen it for a lot of years, but
I believe there's actually a calendar in the annual town report, which we were trying to find online. There's a lot of information in the town report that
Yeah.
all departments do. It does run a year behind. We have FY '17, FY '18. Again, we have to close the year before we can do that. So Suzanne's goal is to have us all submit by the end of January to have available at least for the town elections
for May,
for May.
yeah.
So that is online, along with a couple years back, and I believe there is a municipal calendar there as well. That takes into account more than just the finance, but,
Right, it'll take into
elections,
account
yeah.
the operations, of Jean. And if you didn't get it from Jean, the oversight it is from the state. And the Department of Revenue is the agency that watches over everything we do. Every city and town in the Commonwealth, so. Anybody else look over our shoulder? Branch agencies, federal
Our
government?
taxpayers do.
Yes, taxpayers, we hope.
And again, I consider my role to be support. I will state an opinion, but my goal is to present you with information so you can make an informed decision. So that's how I see my role. Again, if you need any information that you find helpful, I just ask that it comes in, not the day of a meeting, because my office is, you'll find that almost every office here is pretty lean.
Yeah.
So we have our schedule kind of mapped out, with payroll and expense warrants and things like that, so.
Where is your office?
I'm right across from the men's room. Yes.
So she can
How convenient.
watch people go in and out, I
So if you see
guess.
my door closed, it's not because you can't enter. It's just because, I'm right
The
across
sights
from the
you
men's
see.
room.
Thank you
You're welcome.
for going through that. How's that? Did that work well for
Thank
you?
you.
Good.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we have a special town meeting draft warrant. I'm sure that's what you'd like to call it, Jean.
That's it.
Maybe we can just go through it so we can all understand it. We're not going to vote tonight, but we can start understanding. That way, if you have any questions, we'll know that we either need to bring a department head in to discuss the request or whatever. As I said, I have not seen this at all, so we'll see.
Is the setup for the November meeting pretty much the same every year?
It is. It is. You'll have the standard, what I consider routine articles.
Okay.
The first one is the balance of the budget type of thing. This is when I sent out the request from the departments and I said, where do you see yourself? We have an increase in assessors' wages that was really just a They have a couple weeks budgeted that was extra, because again, we're back to a lean staff, so if she has to work more than 30 hours for our hourly employee, that we have some money available. The increase in collector wages, we had an employee retire from the town. This was all positions are very important, so but this was our payroll clerk, so we did have someone sit with her. We had an overlap of 3 weeks, and we are budgeting extra hours during the course of the year, because it's a new person, and it's going to take a little while to get up to speed.
So is the reason you need the November meeting because you don't know what you need to know in the spring, or
Yep.
stuff comes up? I
Stuff
mean,
comes up.
Okay.
And like I said, free cash is certified at that point. So if we have
Gotcha.
to, make any amendments to the budgets, we can. Cemetery expense, that was the request that was put in, and I'll let Matt explain that because he met with the chair. Increase in Norfolk County, we have currently, we budgeted for 8 students. But because of the number of students that are going to Norfolk County, they needed an extra bus. So it's really that amount that we need for the extra bus that we now have to divide out. The question is whether or not we still have 8 students, because we did hear a rumor that one of them has moved to another community. So if that happens, we may not need this piece of the article. If it doesn't happen, then we will need to pay our share of the second bus. The increase in fire wages, ambulance wages, fire expense, and ambulance expense all have to do with the contract being negotiated now. That should be ratified. You'll see an article later. So this will take into account any budgetary changes because of the contract ratification. Increase in debt expense, I have to check on the scheduling. We are doing a refunding, which
You
is
have
really...
ambulance, or you've got fire and ambulance expenses also, Jean.
Correct. In case there's anything that's on the expense side that was
But that's not
negotiated.
contract, right?
It would be part of the contract. Anything related to
Oh.
the contract that would be expense related. Clothing allowance. I'm going off to the police contract in my head, so clothing allowance. If there's any gym memberships or anything like that, any tuition reimbursements, anything like that that would impact the expense side of it,
Okay.
we would need to have that in here as well. Debt expense, and again, this can go up or down, but I put as an increase right now. We are refunding the $20 million school borrowing. I know it's hard to believe. And refunding is basically refinancing. So we're trying to get a better rate. We're looking at that process now. We're going before the Board of Selectmen on October 2nd. And I believe we're going to receive the phone calls on Halloween or around that time. So we'll know whether or not, we're looking to save money on our loan. Basically, that's what it
What's
is.
the ballpark on that debt?
What did I not just say?
I said
Let's
ballpark.
not, okay, we don't give ballparks.
Ballparks are all over.
Or gets you into trouble because you said the last
That's
I'm not asking for the penny.
Do you see, already we're causing trouble.
I didn't realize you said the ballpark, so,
Oh, no, thank you.
okay.
Increase in landfill maintenance. This was really a timing issue. We have mowings done twice a year, and they did the mowing just off cycle. So, once they cross the year, it throws us off. So I think really the landfill turned back 700, but it's going to cause me problems in this fiscal year. And decreased library expense. This is due to the override vote. We had voted $2,701 as part of the main warrant article, but then we had the full amount as part of the override. So this was, it was appropriated twice, but for a good reason. It's because we would have needed this expense to pay for the lights and the stuff
Yep.
if we didn't have the library open.
Building issues.
So this article, you will see at every fall town meeting. This is what I consider the rebalance. We take into account anything that we know at this point in time that may impact the budget. So you will always see this. Prior bill is a standard article. This is if a vendor sends an invoice after I've closed the books. So we closed the books as of 6:30. I pay bills up until July 15th. I kind of have a little, we have to receive all our bills and process them or encumber them at that time. This vendor didn't get us the information so we could do those things. So town meeting has to approve it.
By what what's the
9 cents, I
number?
believe.
9 cents? So 90% of the people need to approve this. Again, it's a, I don't know if that's a state law or is that a bylaw, general bylaw?
No,
I
it's
think
the
it's a
state,
state law.
yeah. Yeah, we work really hard not to do that, especially, you know, I hate to have
Federal
this go.
government, if someone comes in and gives me a bill, I'm paying it.
I'm sorry?
Even for past year, if they give me a bill and we received a service, I pay it.
Right, yeah.
Yep, and we will too, after it gets approved, because we can't do
Right.
anything unless it's approved by
Right.
town meeting.
And some,
that.
yeah, and like I said, there are mechanisms where this doesn't, if I'd known about it, we would have encumbered it. Or if we received it by July 15th, we would have paid it. So this came in, I received notice in
Unaware.
September, which is far too late. So it has to go to town meeting. And again, if they were to send it now, they would have to wait to the spring town meeting. You know, I can't pay bills for FY18 just because it's owed. I need approval from town meeting.
So if at any point we were curious about any one of these numbers, what would be the way to get the details behind them?
There's
You
the
would ask
detail
me.
lady.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I usually provide the explanation for, I don't go through the calculations with you. I can if you want, but I provide the explanation as to why.
But for instance, if I said, yeah, why is it 12,000 for the cemetery, would you have an answer?
Oh, yeah.
I would.
Okay.
You know, I can tell you the 8,000, and again, I
Not
put
that I
that
have
there.
that question,
No,
but-
the 8,000 is because of the overlap for the 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We paid out vacation, and then we budgeted an extra 5 hours on a non-payroll week, on a payroll week, and 3 hours on a non-payroll week, because we have a new staff member. So I can tell you the reasons why, you know, we received most of those numbers. Transfer from free cash to OPEB, again, I'm expecting that free cash is certified by town meeting for sure, but hopefully by your October 9th meeting. This is the money that closed out from the retiree portion of the health insurance. So one of the things you'll hear me say is there always a story behind the numbers. When I submit the balance sheet and when I go through free cash, I look at where the money came from. And, you know, because last year's free cash was $1.5 million. What made up that number? Should it go someplace else? You know, what's the story behind that? Well, part of it is we budget for retiree health insurance. So the closeout to that, we did not spend $17,500. I'm now moving or requesting that it be voted on to move to the other post-employment account, so that we're putting the money aside to help address that very large liability.
How does that happen? You have somebody who decided not to take the retiree health insurance and they went out and bought it on their own
The
or something?
husband got a job, a change in.
Variation, someone may have passed away. This is the retiree portion. Again, we do the budgets in March. I use the February census to prepare the following town meeting. So, you know, anything could happen. You could have a qualifying event where, or, you know, in this case, in the retiree's case, someone could pass away where, you know, where we just didn't use that. We do, on the active side, on the people that are on the active plan, we budget at the census level in February plus 5 families. So if someone were to come on as a new hire, you know, at some point it's going to catch up with us a little bit, because the under 20, or if you're 26 and under, you can be on your parents' plan. So if they have new hires at the school level, they're under 26, eventually they're going to age up. But we've been very lucky. We also have an opt-out program as well as a waiver program. So we, you know, if you don't take health insurance at all, never did, you get $200. If you had health insurance through the town for more than a year, then, and you choose to go on a spouse's, and the spouse cannot be a employee of the town, then we also give you money for not taking the health insurance. We worked really hard on the health insurance piece to kind of mitigate any kind of increases. There's a long history. I won't bore you with it tonight.
At the,
A number of times the town has done that, which, we're chasing our tail kind of thing, but it's helped because the cost has just gone through the roof.
At the town meeting this spring, somebody asked about getting together with some other towns. Is that
Being worked
ongoing
on, I
yet, or
think.
how's that going?
No, it is going, and I'll let Matt explain that too. But we are the first town that offers a high deductible plan as the only option. So we're ahead of people in that light. So we've already gone that step, and we have the other two policies in place. So you got to be careful on who you develop a relationship with. Article 4, transfer from free cash to stabilization. This is for any insurance claim that was not spent by the end of the fiscal year. We had $32,390 that closed out to free cash for insurance claim. One of them was in this building, and we weren't going to make the repair if we didn't fix the problem, or this wasn't enough to fix the problem. So we're going to put it into, again, our recommendation is to put into stabilization. Hopefully town meeting supports that. And if we have the larger problem, we'll have that funding source, such as the roof. This is for water damage. Most of this was for water damage. So if the money's not spent within by the end of the fiscal year, or 120 days, I think, then it has to close out.
Was that for this main area, Jane? Or the?
I'm wondering if Suzanne's office was involved.
Oh.
You know, she had,
Yeah, okay.
so that was the closeout from that. Cable to capital, I'm not sure what that is about. Again, this is a draft, we put it as a placeholder. The Blackstone Valley Regional Vocational School District, at the spring town meeting, at the annual town meeting, the town of Douglas appropriated the funding for BVT less the additional assessment of $70,518. The rest of the communities have voted the entire budget for BVT, therefore we have to, we would have needed
Committed.
4 of the towns plus us not to vote that in order for it to stick. But we now have to
Follow through.
appropriate the $70,518. Ratify a firefighters EMT union contract. Again, that's under negotiation. That's hopefully going to be back at the town meeting in the fall. We did have it on the spring town meeting. It just was not completed at that time. Once town meeting ratifies it, we will be paying out the retros. Again, that's in Article 2, as well as anything. We will increase the budgets for any of the expense items that are in that contract. Articles 8 and 9 and 10, I cannot speak to.
Is that
11.
water sewer
That is water sewer. They sent those in as placeholders today.
today?
Yeah, they have until.
Okay.
I did talk briefly with Mr. Sullivan, who's the water sewer manager. I'm trying to think of what his real type, is it water sewer?
Superintendent.
Superintendent, yeah. He wants these on so that we can apply for grant funding. He says you can't have grant funding unless there's an article approved at town meeting. So I think that's the main reason why he's putting those on now.
So, would you recommend that we have Bob come in?
I did already give him a heads
Okay.
up that he would be
Okay.
on the 9th.
Okay.
So I'm trying to remember, as the November town meeting, this one, usually pretty pro forma, or are there sometimes lots of discussions from the citizens?
Depends on the articles.
Depends on who's present.
Okay.
Depends on the
Depends who
articles.
just shows up.
Yeah.
It could be lively or it could be very quiet.
Yeah, I'm
and-
trying to remember.
I think they're pretty, I think last year was an hour long,
Yeah.
because I did look at the time. I think when you get to the specials, I think the main budget has been discussed, and they understand that some of these are just housekeeping items.
Right.
Like I said, Article 2, Article 1, you'll see at both the special town meeting in the fall as well as the special town meeting in the spring. And it's really just to address, the school department doesn't have to, we have voted salary and expense on the town side by each department. So even though the town administrator has selectmen, town council, property and liability insurance, town reports, all of those departments under his umbrella, he cannot move the money because town meeting votes at selectman salary, selectman expense, town reports. The school department votes one line and they can move it around at the school committee level. So,
Right.
and the budgets are so tight, that we need these articles. We need to be able to look at the budgets and see what we have, what we don't have. We also have 3 departments that are really considered 24/7. You have the fire, well, I consider fire and ambulance as one, police and highway. So you need to have these town meetings, these type of articles there.
Oh, number 10. Looks like an
10.
interesting article.
I wasn't answering anything after the financials.
I saw that.
Yes.
I caught that.
What?
Thank you, Howard.
We're already to the next item
Yes.
on your
okay,
agenda.
all
We're
right,
already on the
no,
roll of the Finance
well,
Committee.
I'm just gonna
Appendix
have
H,
to,
information.
So, I actually believe that this is a financial article.
You may, but I can't speak to it. I don't,
Oh,
this is,
okay, so are you aware of any research that's been done as to what the financial benefit would be?
I am not, I don't have anything
Okay, I'll
to
talk to
add
Matt
for
about
10
it.
and 11.
Okay.
I don't.
We'll talk to Matt. Anybody else have any questions along those
I
lines?
remember at the town meeting in the spring, there was talk of the top floor of the old,
Yeah, the Guilford Mill, old Guilford Mill. It's
Yeah.
Now it's
The classic
Dakar
envelope.
is that
envelope.
something that's going to happen?
Oh, it's done.
It's done.
It's
Okay.
done.
All right.
Done deal.
Okay.
But they haven't opened yet. They were subject to, I think, licensing from the state. I think, did they get their license, I think?
I'm not answering
Can't
any.
Yeah, I'm not answering that. I'm not
Anything
talking-
about it.
I think
You can
they
only say
may
it
have,
so many
they
times,
may have
Jean, right?
gotten there. Maybe there's some holdup somewhere, and I'm not quite sure what it is. My question is whether or not, what having retail marijuana in Douglas, what it will bring to Douglas, because I think that there are clear problems with doing that based on where we are and certain circumstances that we undergo based on where we are. So I guess we can talk to Matt about it when he's around.
He should be, I anticipate he'll be at your October 9th meeting.
Good.
Here's a dumb question. Who's Matt?
Matt is our
Excellent question.
town administrator. Matt Wojcik.
His spreadsheets.
He is at the ICMA meeting in Baltimore was. I think he may be on his way home, if not already home, but he came home today. What's that ICMA stand for? International,
International Association of,
ICMA.
yeah, managers at the end.
It's Managers Association, something Managers Association. So it was in Baltimore. And it's for managers. Okay, so where are we on the agenda? Right there? We're right there? Next. Roll of the Finance Committee. And the appendix information. I asked Jean if she'd go through the appendix information for us. Want to do that now, Jean, and then I'll just, or do you want to sit around for the roll of the Finance Committee?
I'll sit around for both.
Thank you.
You know, I don't know that I would be able to add anything other than I did read through it, anything
Yeah.
more than what's here.
Yeah.
If they want to read through it and ask any questions next time,
Can I ask a question this time?
you can, absolutely, if the chair allows you to.
Chair, would you allow me to
I
ask a
would
question?
anytime.
Thank you. So Jean, could you explain, certainly not for my benefit, because we can all assume I already know, just for everyone else,
Just because.
could you explain there exist established financial policies regarding free cash, reserve funds, and stabilization fund? Can you explain the difference in our local budget of each of those three, what each one is?
So the stabilization, I'll start with that. I consider that to be more like a town, and again, I'll equate things back to your home budget, more of like the town's savings account. We do have, there's a policy on all of these that are located on the town's website. Stabilization is not meant to be used for non-reoccurring expense. So it's for one-time items. We should have between stabilization and free cash 10% of the operating budget. That's really a goal, 5 and 5. We have used our stabilization fund for the purchase of one-time items. And we're pretty strict about how we use it. We actually, at the Springtown meeting, we put money back into stabilization because it fell below that amount, and we brought it back up to that amount. So that's, you'll see money go back in, like,
Article 3, right?
And stabilization.
Yes.
Or 4, right?
yeah, the 30.
Okay.
So we'll put it over there. It's meant, if we were doing a roof project, again, we'd look at where the money come from that went in stabilization, and if we did the roof property, okay, well, let's take the 30,000 from stabilization, because that's, kind of what we had put it as a placeholder. Town meeting has to vote all ins and outs of stabilization. I can't decide in my office that I'm going to take money from stabilization. Town meeting has to vote everything.
And stabilization, by the way, it's recommended by the Department of Revenue, the percentage that you keep in. Also, it has to do with our rating, our bond rating for interest rates.
It does.
So we are at A2 or double A? Or is it A2?
They changed the rating system.
Oh, they did?
and- Yeah, they did, and I don't want to say it. because I
Okay,
don't
I'll
my
have
head
to,
right now.
I'll have to refresh because
Yeah.
I'm unaware they changed it.
Well, they did, and I don't remember which way it went, so I'm going to
Okay.
hold off on that
Okay.
question.
But
But
we've
it does. They look at,
But we try
yeah.
to keep it up there so that we get good interest rates, again, protecting the community, so.
and actually,
do-
both free cash and stabilization, the bonding agencies look at. We are scheduled to have a call with Moody's, and they will ask us what the balance is in stabilization, how we use it, how the town uses it, and as well as how did we end the free cash. Free cash is calculated by the turnbacks of the town departments. So what didn't I spend in FY18? That all closes, as well as the revenue estimates. So we project that we're going to get $100,000 in motor vehicle, and we collect 3, well, that difference closes into free cash as well. We try to be prudently conservative with our revenues estimates, because you don't want to have a negative free cash amount. And you have to go with the assumption that everybody's going to spend what they have on the expense side. You can't count on those turnbacks.
Is there always free cash?
There have been times when there wasn't.
And since I've been here, there has always been free cash, but there is not always free cash.
Does it automatically go to stabilization if it closes, or it still has to be voted to flip it
Anything
back?
in and out of stabilization has to be voted at town
So
meeting.
you identify it when you
Yep.
close the books and then ask
I
to
asked.
have it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you could
okay.
decide, Gene, I'm not gonna support that,
Yeah.
that $30,000 transfer.
Okay.
I don't care
Yeah,
about your
okay,
story.
All right.
You could,
But you close the books in something in any category or department that's left over that was unspent, you then identify and look to have some kind of an article. Theoretically,
No, this particular 32,000, I knew where it came from. I know what the intent is. It was an insurance reimbursement. It was for damage that was as a result of a claim that we submitted that we did not spend. I know there's a bigger project that's going to be used to kind of repair that damage. That's why I'm recommending that was transferred to stabilization. So when that bigger project gets done, we can use this as a funding source.
And would
Did I-
annotate that we had already received some of the funds, $30,000-ish.
Yeah.
to-
Otherwise, it becomes available
Right.
for anybody.
Right, it's a free.
So like I said, I
So the
try to
recommend- put it away.
analyze.
You're
where
trying to
did-
fence it to the
Yeah,
right place it needs to go to.
yeah. Did I answer your question?
maybe.
Well, it's sort of like that actually was capital money because it was a capital asset that was damaged. Got money back, so we want to fix the capital asset, goes, so we try to keep it together, keep it separate.
So these are the articles that, again, that I put forward, but they have to pass by the Finance Committee, by the Board of Selectmen, before they even get the town meeting for consideration. And again, you could decide, Gene, we're just not going to support that. We want to do X, Y, or Z, and I'd have to be okay with that. So all money in, all money out of stabilization has to be voted. It's a majority to go in, and you need 2/3 to come out.
So Gene, of these things here, does the state have any directives on how these are dealt with, or do you have some wiggle
We don't know
room?
what you're talking about.
The free cash
This list,
reserve fund.
these bullets here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
free
right,
cash
okay,
reserve
so-
fund
right.
stabilization.
Debt management, investment management, there are certain rules and regulations.
Yeah, I mean, how much is the state look over your shoulder in terms of how you deal with these monies?
Again, I don't know that it's necessarily at the state level. I
Okay.
mean, they'll watch free cash for sure.
Okay,
But stabilization, you want to, the auditor will definitely have a
Comments.
comment on it, as well as the bonding agencies.
gotcha.
So again, if you're looking at your household budget, you don't generally, I'm talking strictly about stabilization, you don't use stabilization to pay your electric bill. It's a non-reoccurring revenue for a reoccurring expense. So we're very careful on how
Well,
stabilization is.
some people may do that, but what we're here to say is, it's not good policy. And
Because
it's
the
not
ex-
good policy
yeah.
for the town.
Because the expense will continue even though the revenue source dries out. Yeah. So,
One time.
so that's stabilization. Again, we try to use it for, we have used it for capital. Pretty much, that's it. Reserve fund, again, I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, as part of the annual town meeting, the town appropriates a reserve fund transfer account. I believe it's $50,000 this year. So if departments, because again, we have a very tight budget, have something that's extraordinary, unforeseen, and they can't wait for a town meeting. So it's either, they can't wait till the fall town meeting, the spring town meeting already happened, and then they would come to you. They would present a request to you, and they would explain why they are in this situation, and ask that you
And it
consider
can't
their request.
overspend.
Yeah.
Where does the money in the reserve fund come from?
We
Budget,
appropriate.
it's part of the town
Okay.
budget. Yeah.
So it's decided,
It's just a line item in the town budget, 50,000. That's a very conservative amount, I think, at this
Based on the
point,
budget,
based on
yeah.
our budget now. But I think, again, a number of years ago, I think it was 20,000 when I started, maybe even been less. Of course, everything else was less too, so you didn't need as much to plug in the holes.
So we have used it, and luckily, we do not use all of it. Last year, we met on June 12th, and we did some, because that was a little earlier than, the fiscal year end, so we were probably a little more conservative with their requests, and we didn't even use the entire reserve fund transfer request. The departments did end up closing out. But it was really to protect them, because as of June 30, the year ends. We have up to July 15th to pay for it, so. So the reserve fund, again, it comes before the finance committee. The department presents the request. You vote on it, ask any questions that you have, and then if they receive it, then your 50,000 gets reduced by the amount of that approved request, and it kind of goes. I do provide a report at the end of, or after every reserve fund, so you know where you are. So I usually leave that in the finance committee mailbox. And free cash, that's basically the form, or the amount that I receive back from the state after I submit my balance sheet. Again, it's made from any turnbacks from the departments from after the year has closed, as well as any additional funds over the estimates that we receive for the miscellaneous local aid, local receipts. So that, our biggest category is motor vehicle. That's our biggest estimated receipt. And I can tell you that this year, give you a little sneak peek, and I know I never do that, Pam, do I? I'll let you know just that one category. I have it. We budgeted $1,004,825. We collected $1,317,186. So in that one category, we have $312,361 more than we said we were going to be. That number closes to free cash. So
Oh, I see, yeah.
that's one piece of the puzzle. They also look at collections. They will, what I call, hit us for free cash if we have grants that are in deficit after a certain point, and I do anticipate a couple hits this year, not because of anything we did, and most of the time it's because the state didn't give us our money in timely. We have to have the money back in, I have to show that I received the money by September 30th, or they take away from our free cash number. And some of it's state grants.
So timing.
So
is
they
kind
don't,
of
they
a-
penalize us for them not reimbursing us. And we have two, I know of two. We have the bulletproof vest that we just didn't get in. That's a little over 13,000, and there's a couple others. I just didn't get the money back in time. But it's not because anybody did anything wrong.
Yeah.
We submitted on a timely fashion. We put the request, they just didn't give us the money back. And unless we have the money back in, they kind of penalize us.
So I'm going to ask Jean to go over the free cash after she gets it all certified and everything, so we know where it came from this year. Be a little exercise so we understand, and she can tell us the story behind the numbers.
I can. It's not dollar for dollar, so I generally, and I've done this the last 2 years, this committee as well as the Board of Selectmen, is I give you the budgetary highlights. So I'll give you the major categories that closed out. I don't go, because there's other things, like I said, that are in consideration. A word to the committee is I never find money. That doesn't happen in my office. It's not hidden in a drawer, so it's not found money. It's after reconciliation, and this is what happens. So,
Okay, so did you do free cash? Everybody understand that, what those are a little bit, sort of? It's not free and it's not cash, as the DOR says?
it's not. And like I said, we try to have 5% in each of those categories. And by building free cash, and up until the override passed, we were relying on free cash to fund our operating budget. So it was really important that we closed having free cash. And even in FY19, we have $500,000 of free cash built in. So you have to be conservative with those revenue estimates. I told you we closed out a little over 300,000 motor vehicle. You can't raise that estimate to that number to spend it. You just have to make sure that you're prudently conservative. And we really have a good team, both with the school as well as the town and the FinCom, where we all have that same belief. We don't want to, ever jeopardize the condition of the town.
What's our town budget, more or less?
The town budget is on the website.
Okay.
It's,
I should remember this, but I can't.
I can tell you what. it's
30-ish, 29-ish?
2930.
Okay.
I can tell you what FY18.
29 something.
FY18 revised general fund town was over 29 million.
So as Jean mentioned, we do have an audit that's done every year. Are we in the process of that, or are they
We
going
are.
to start it?
No,
Or-
we're in the process of it.
And it's going to be finalized
We shoot,
and presented to the Board of Selectmen
we
and,
shoot for the first meeting in December.
okay, and, I think the Finance Committee is invited to that, are they not? Although I
they're
don't
always
remember
invited,
last
yeah.
year. I'm
Oh,
sorry?
yeah, you're always invited. Some people just choose to watch it on TV.
Okay, yeah.
That's probably how Howard watches it. It's riveting.
It is riveting. Or books on tape, right? Yeah.
Gene, I'm just looking at the definition of free cash on the website here. Do we often have unspent amounts in budget line items?
Yes,
That's turnbacks.
that's true. Yeah, that's
Does that
right, yeah.
happen all the time, pretty much?
It is, but you
Okay.
can't count on it.
Right.
Because, your feeling is
Not a
if...
lot,
yeah.
Dick.
There's-
Yeah, okay.
Dribs and drabs, generally.
And, most of it is due to some circumstance. Like we had a change in town administrator last year, so you had to turn back in that department. Health insurance, again, we budgeted the census. If that changes, we'll have it, we'll have extra in that. So we do budget for the 24/7 operations. You never want them to be close to zero, so there is hopefully some residual in that. And again, I'll put that as part of the budgetary highlights, the larger components of that.
Can't budget to the absolute. You have to, and we tend to budget conservatively, because if we don't, we could be in trouble.
And
You know,
we have very good department heads here that are always looking to save funds.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you just run out of the year. You get to June and it's like the year's over, so you just didn't get to that last project. Unfortunately, that does happen.
Jean, can I ask you, I'm still struggling with this, using Article 3 as an example. Excuse me, Article 3 talks about transferring the sum of $17.5 from free cash to the OPEB account. Free cash for what fiscal year?
So I closed out FY18. And I'm submitting my balance sheet. So my balance sheet is based on FY18. So it's FY18's unexpended funds. In this case, this is the unexpended funds that closed into free cash from the retiree health insurance account. So we did not spend that amount of money, so I'm taking that, because it was really for retiree, again, I'm looking at that story, it was for retiree
okay.
health insurance and then
Into
transferring.
what year's OPEB money?
OPEB it's a trust fund. There's no, it's not, it's a
Okay.
fund, it just
Okay.
goes into
Lying
that
on the
account.
liability to the town.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's a, if you will, a separate mini savings account?
yeah,
Yeah,
for
okay. All
a
right,
specific
okay.
purpose.
I
Designated.
think my question was, you can't take free cash coming out of the end of a previous fiscal year and without any other authority, start to move it into use for the current fiscal year, correct?
I cannot do anything without any authority.
Right? So if
Yes.
free cash is identified in September, October, November of 18, coming out of fiscal year 18's year end, you certainly, it can't be used without any other authority
Correct.
to fund anything in FY 19 that's currently going on. It's still got to find its place,
Yep.
Yeah, town meeting,
really jumping into one of the savings accounts.
right.
Okay.
Town meeting has
Actually,
to
anything.
approve any expenditure, unless it's a grant.
Okay.
So
Got it.
they're
Got
approving
it.
all the general fund expenditures, all the, and they voting on funding sources. So town we had this conversation because people will say, well, you moved the money. No, I didn't. Article 3 of the special town meeting
Okay.
authorized me to do that journal entry.
Okay.
Town meeting has to approve.
That closed the loop for me.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
And even on the, like we have pay-as-you-go capital, where I may close out anything less than $100, but you'll see a lot of them that stay open because I want town, again, looking at the source of those fundings, those funds were appropriated for pay-as-you-go capital, so I don't want them to close in free cash. I want you to say, okay, when the capital committee meets this year, this is a funding source available to help fund that. So
Good.
What would you like to do next? What were you doing?
Are there any reserve fund transfers?
I don't know.
there are none now, but you may have one October 9th.
Okay.
Really?
You may, yes. The landfill had to have a inspection, I believe. They just didn't have it available tonight. So you may have that one.
So, an unanticipated inspection?
Yeah, it wasn't unanticipated. And I really can't wait till the fall town meeting. Again,
Sure.
we're,
Yeah.
this is where we're caught between some of those timing things.
Okay, so now the role of the Finance Committee, I think I'll let you read this and take it home and understand it. If you've read it already and have some questions, we can talk about it. I like this one paragraph, I might read it. This is written by Alan Tosti, and he was chair of the Arlington Finance Committee, and, I guess nobody else. How long has he been, do you know how long he's been there? I think he's been there longer than I've been here.
I don't know.
He did some really good work with passing overrides and stuff in Arlington and coming up with 5-year plans and whatever that Douglas kind of tried to emulate this past year. This talks about the role, the framework of the division of powers within local government. He says he sees the division of powers as comparable to that of the state and federal government. The Board of Selectmen and the town manager, administrator, executive secretary are part of the executive branch of government. It's their job to collect budget information, develop budget priorities, and formulate a balanced budget, the same as a president or governor. Once developed, that budget is presented to the Finance Committee, representing the legislative branch or town meeting. In effect, the local Finance Committee has the same role as the House Ways and Means Committee in the state legislature. It's the Finance Committee's responsibility to receive the budgets from the executive branch, either as a collective whole or individually by department, analyze them, have hearings where the department heads and the public can testify, and present a balanced budget to town meeting. That budget should reflect the Finance Committee's decisions based upon their best judgment of the issues and finances of the town. The budget before town meeting is the Finance Committee's, and it is their job to explain and defend it. This does not preclude department heads or the town administrator, if any, from being called upon to answer questions or explain items in more detail, but it is the Finance Committee's budget. I mean, that puts it all in a nutshell to me. And this also goes into the state law, which is Chapter 39, Section 16, that allows finance committees and actually tells towns, you need to have a finance committee if you have, I believe, over 10,000, not over 10, it's if your budget is over $10,000, I used to read.
So do we have public hearings with department heads?
We do, and we decide, I mean, some budgets are very small, Richard, and if things get tight, we may not be able to get to the smaller ones that are non-controversial, but we try to talk to most departments.
So is the way we get information from the various town departments, just we request information, or is it through a public hearing, or is it both?
They will, a general request will go out to all departments
Okay.
for their budgets from the town administrator. Again, we're one of a piece of a number of the puzzle.
Right.
And so the town administrator, who's aware and running the town, moving the town forward, hopefully, will send a note out to departments, and depending on the financial state of the town, sometimes we've had an administrator say, gee, you can, please send in just a level funded budget, period. Some will say, send in a budget that will level fund our services. That doesn't mean it's level funded, though. Send in a budget that's 5% less than last year.
Right.
Based on, again, the estimated revenues, which is like looking into a crystal ball because we don't have the state numbers
Right.
when that letter has to go out.
So let's say the head of the highway department, for instance, we said we'd like you to come and have in a public forum, present your budget
Yep.
or defend your budget. That would not be an unusual request.
No,
They would be scheduled.
That's
Especially
absolutely-
the larger departments will be scheduled. You will always see
absolutely.
the highway, police, fire, ambulance, community development.
Always do a public?
Always.
Well, every meeting's televised, so
Right.
yes. There is also a public hearing held before the town meeting, before you.
Before we
you
take
vote.
our votes on the budget, we have a public hearing after we've.
We don't generally have people that come to our meetings.
Yeah, we usually, although they're called public hearings, meetings, and we are public,
Yes.
But there is a public hearing before.
There is a
Yes,
public
there is.
hearing, and all departments are, again.
they usually show
general-
up, most of them.
Yes, we
yeah.
requested all departments are
Yeah.
present. If anybody would have
Questions about
questions
it.
before you vote. It's always our job, in my opinion, to present a balanced budget that's been approved and agreed upon by the Board of Selectmen, the Town Administrator, and the Finance Committee. I feel like we've done our job if we can present that to town meeting.
Becomes
So-
very difficult if it's a controversial budget and there's disagreement, and we've had that.
So,
I mean,
you know,
have had that.
we encourage people to attend the meetings because it helps you make a decision based on the input that you're receiving from the taxpayers, so. And
Is
then,
that statutory? You have to have a public hearing? Or is it just something we choose to do? I don't mean a public meeting, but a public hearing.
I don't think it's in our bylaws.
answer that question.
There is information in our bylaws about the Finance Committee as well. It might be in our general bylaws for the Finance Committee to do that. But it's not in the state law that I'm aware of. So,
it's good practice, we're going to continue.
yeah, it is good practice, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the school has a public hearing, I think,
They do have a public hearing on the budget.
yeah. Where was I? Oh, we were talking about the role of the Finance Committee. So this is the state law. Our own bylaw, I don't have written here, but it is on the town website and under the general bylaws. So you'll find that's the statute for the bylaw for implementing the Finance Committee. And that only went into effect, I think it was 1992 or 93, just before I got on. Before that, the Board of Selectmen, the 3-member Board of Selectmen, were the Finance Committee. They were the Board of Health. Small town. Very small town. You're talking, I mean, back when it was 3,000 to 5,000 people, less than 5,000 people. Dick remembers that.
I do.
Okay, so we do not have any reserve fund transfers. I didn't know that there were minutes here. There's 2 of us. What do we think about that? Why don't we wait?
I wasn't even here that night.
Oh. Okay, I didn't look.
You would be the only one that could verify
I think we're going to
that.
have to wait on those minutes then from June 12th. And old business, new business. Anybody with old business? No, you wouldn't have old business, would you? Howard, you could have old business.
I'm old. Does that count?
New business, I will make a point of asking Suzanne Kane, who is the administrative assistant, to get us a member listing, with everybody's name and phone number, so we can reach people. Maybe if you haven't already, would you, she must have your email addresses, right? I think she must, based on your,
Suzanne?
yeah, with your, yeah, I do too. Okay, so next meeting we'll get that, and then,
How about still new business?
still new business, okay.
So, question, I did see the email regarding Mike's schedule availability. Did he get back to you on your question as to
I-
whether the Tuesdays were going to be a
I don't
significant
know,
conflict for him?
I don't know. Not before I left the house. I mean, maybe.
Okay. Because that definitely could be an issue heading forward.
Yeah, I know,
Quorums and things like
right,
that.
that's
Yep.
right.
Where would our town bylaws be on here?
And I do understand that our,
I know in the last few years, we've had these Tuesday nights, and he has been mostly available.
yeah, it's probably infrequent that he runs into this. I think that's how I'd mention it. Yeah,
General bylaws.
So some
don't
of these
have it.
people have resigned from the Finance Committee on this list here? Because you said there's 8.
Right, that list from June.
Right, so who's not on it anymore?
So Ryan is no longer on it, and Cynthia is no longer
Right.
on it. So there are new, the 5 here, plus holdovers Carol Koglinski,
yep,
Mike Hutnack,
yep.
and Lee LaHouse.
LaHouse. Yeah.
And I think Carol and Lee, I think all 3 have had good attendance over the years. So
But Lee
hopefully-
just started last year,
Who started?
so.
Yeah,
I just got sworn in that week when they were having
I
that.
think even last
so
year Lee
that's
was
why
here
I-
most of the
so I
nights.
just started.
Okay.
And Mike
So you were
and
at
Carol have had
I
pretty
got
good
sworn in
attendance.
like on,
Okay, all right. Just something to keep in mind,
Thank you.
particularly with Mike.
Thank you, yes, that's true, so I can check with him on that. So our next meeting is October 9th at 7 o'clock here. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I need a second.
A second.
It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Short and sweet. Finance Committee adjourns at 8:18. Ooh.